FANCHON the Cricket by George Sand. Translated in 1863 by Matilda M. Farmer Barbeau of La Casse was in easy circumstances, as was proved by his being a member of the municipal council of his commune. He was the owner of 2 fields, which, besides affording support to his family, brought him considerable profit, for they yielded abundant crops of hay, and with the exception of a small portion which grew on the banks of a stream, and which was somewhat damaged by rushes, it was prized throughout the neighborhood as fodder of the first quality. Farmer Barbeau's house was well built, roofed with tiles, and stood in a fine position on the side of a hill, with an excellent garden and vineyard attached. At the rear of his barn he had also a capital orchard, producing an abundance of plums, cherries, apples, pears, while his walnut trees were the largest and oldest within 6 miles of the spot. He was a kind-hearted and industrious man, strongly attached to his family, without being unjust to his neighbors and fellow parishioners. He had already 3 children when Mother Barbeau, doubtless taking into consideration that they had sufficient means for 5, and no time to lose, thought fit to give him at birth 2 fine boys, so much alike that it was almost impossible to distinguish one from the other. Dame Saget, who received them in her apron as they came into the world, did not omit to make a little cross with her needle upon the arm of the firstborn. "For," said she, "a ribbon or a necklace may easily get changed, and then the right of primogeniture will be lost to the eldest. And as soon as the child is strong enough," she added, "you must make a mark which can never be effaced." A piece of advice which was not forgotten. The eldest was christened Sylvain, which name was, however, quickly converted into Sylvanette, to distinguish him from his eldest brother, who had stood as godfather to him, while the younger was called Landry, a name which he preserved as he had received it at his baptism, since his uncle, who was his godfather, had from his youth upward been called Landriche. A bit wordy. Farmer Barbeau was somewhat astonished when he returned from market to see 2 little heads in the cradle. Oh, said he, "this cradle is too small. Tomorrow morning I must see if I cannot enlarge it." He knew something of joining, though he had never learned it as a trade, and had made more than half of his own furniture. The worthy man gave no further evidence of surprise, and went to see his wife, who drank a large glass of warm wine, and declared that she never was better in her life. "You labor so well, wife," he said to her, "that I must take fresh courage. Here are 2 more children to provide for, which we did not absolutely need, and this is a hint to me that I must not flag in the culture of my lands and cattle. But be easy, they too will work by and by, and take care you do not give me 3 next time, for that would be rather too much." At this Mother Barbeau began to shed tears, which greatly distressed her good man. Come, said he, "you must not grieve, wife. It was not to reproach you I spoke thus, but on the contrary to thank you. These 2 children are fine, well-made little creatures, sound in body and limb, and I am grateful." "Alas," said the wife, "I know well you did not mean to reproach me, but I am sadly troubled, for they tell me there is nothing more difficult to rear than twins, that they wrong each other, and that frequently one of the 2 must perish, that its twin may thrive." Perish. "Indeed," said the farmer, "is that true? As for me, these are the first twins I have seen. It is not a common event, but here is Dame Saget, who knows something about these things, and who will tell us all about it." "Doubtless she will." Dame Saget, being called thus, replied, "You may rely upon what I tell you. Your twins will both thrive, and will not prove more sickly than other children. I have exercised my profession for half a century, and during that time I have seen all the children of the district born. These, therefore, are not the first twins I have brought into the world. Now, the resemblance does not affect their health at all. There are twins who are no more like each other than you and I, but it often happens that one is strong and the other weak. And this is why one lives and the other dies. But look at yours. They are both as strong and healthy as though they were only sons. They did each other no injury in the womb of their mother. They both came into the world without causing her to suffer and without suffering themselves. They are beautiful children, and there is no fear of their dying. Console yourself, therefore, Mother Barbeau. It will be a pleasure to you to watch them grow, and if they continue as they have begun, it will be only you and those who see them every day who will be able to distinguish between them, for I never saw twins so much alike. They resemble newly hatched partridges. None but the mother bird can tell one from the other. This is all very well, said Farmer Barbeau, scratching his head, but I have heard it said that twins take such an affection for one another that when they are separated they refuse to live, and that one at least is often so consumed with grief as to perish. And that is true, returned Dom Saget. But listen to what a woman of experience is about to tell you, and be sure you do not forget. For when your children are old enough to be separated, I shall perhaps be no longer in the world to counsel and advise you. Take care, as soon as your twins begin to know each other, that you do not allow them to be always together. Set one to work while the other remains in the house. When one goes fishing, send the other hunting. When one looks after the sheep, let the other attend to the oxen. When you give one wine to drink, let the other have water. Do not scold or correct them at the same time. Do not dress them alike. When one has a hat, let the other have a cap. And above all, do not let their blouses be of the same color. In short, by all means you can devise, prevent them from being accustomed to be taken for each other. I fear greatly that what I am now telling you will go in at one ear and out the other, but if you do not attend to it, you will some day bitterly repent. Dom Saget spoke golden words. They promised to do as she directed, and dismissed her with a handsome present. Then, as she had strongly recommended that the twins should not be nourished with the same milk, they set about inquiring for a wet nurse, but there was not one to be found in the neighborhood. Mother Barbeau, who had not made her calculations for twins, and who had herself nursed the rest of her children, was, of course, unprepared for such an emergency. The farmer was therefore obliged to set out in quest of a nurse, and during this interval, as the mother could not allow her little ones to suffer, she gave the breast to both infants alike. The peasantry of these parts are slow in coming to a decision, and however rich they may be, invariably bargain a little beforehand. It was well known that the Barbeaus had the means of paying, and thinking that the mother, who was no longer in early youth, could not nurse two children without injury to herself, all the women to whom the worthy farmer applied made a point of asking 18 livres per month, nothing more nor less than they would have required of a citizen. Now, Farmer Barbeau had, in his own mind, decided to give only 12 or 15 livres per month, esteeming even that a large sum for a peasant woman. So he ran hither and thither, disputing and cheapening, but without coming to any decision. The matter was not pressing, for two such young children could not distress their mother, and they were so healthy, so quiet and good, that the two scarcely caused more disturbance in the house than one. When one slept, the other slept also. The father had altered the cradle so that when the twins cried, as they always did at the same time, they were cradled and rocked together. At last, when Farmer Barbeau had succeeded in making an arrangement with a nurse for 15 livres per month, his wife said to him, "Husband, I do not see why we should spend 180 or 200 livres a year as if we were gentlemen and ladies, or as if I were too old to nurse my children, when I have more milk than they want. Our boys are already a month old, and see what capital condition they are in. The woman whom you would give to one of them to nurse is not half so strong and healthy as myself. Her milk is 18 months old, and this is not what so young a child requires. It is true La Saget told us not to nourish our twins with the same milk, that we might prevent them from imbibing too strong an affection for each other. But did she not also say that we must take equal care of both, since after all twins are not so strong as other children? Now I would rather that ours should love each other too much than that either should be sacrificed. Moreover, which of the two should we put out to nurse? I confess I should be as grieved to part with one as with the other, for though I can honestly say that I have always loved my children dearly, these two seem to me the dearest and prettiest I have ever borne in my arms. I entertain for them an indescribable feeling which makes me constantly dread to lose them. I beg you, therefore, husband, to think no more of this nurse. For the rest we will do as La Saget recommended. Why should we fear that children at the breast should grow too fond of each other, when it is as much as they can do to distinguish their hands from their feet? What you say is not altogether without reason, replied Farmer Barbeau, looking at his wife, who was strong and healthy beyond most women of her age. But suppose that in proportion as these children grow, your health should decline. Do not fear, said she. I have as good an appetite as though I were only 15. And besides, if I should feel my strength giving way, I promise you not to conceal it, and it will then be time enough to send one of these poor babes away. Upon this, Farmer Barbeau gave up the point, all the more readily that he did not care to incur an unnecessary expense. Mother Barbeau nursed her twins without either suffering or complaint, and even possessed so strong a constitution that 2 years after her little ones were weaned, she gave birth to a pretty little girl, who was christened Nanette, and whom also she nursed, though this was somewhat too much for her strength, and she would have found it difficult to manage had not her eldest daughter, who was nursing her first child, assisted her from time to time by suckling her little sister. Thus the whole family, the little uncles and aunts with the little nephews and nieces, grew and played together in the sunshine, none more reasonable or better behaved than the rest.